Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening. Hello, MBA hopefuls. We're on the air with MBA Waves, your weekly vidcast talking all things business and education, streaming live every Tuesday on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And we bring you tons of tips to help you get into a top-ranked MBA program and get you up close and personal with many of these B schools that host on the show. And there you can get your questions and your questions answered. So this week, we're super excited to have our guests here. If you like what we're doing, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And today, on episode 101, we have gone over the threshold of 100 episodes. We're talking to Brenda Bernstein, who's founder of she's founder of Essay Expert, and she's author of the bestseller How to Write a Killer LinkedIn Profile, which is actually in its 16th edition. And Antonio Rancucci, and he's an MBA alum from Essex Business School, and he's head of projects, IT, and organization at the Luxembourg Ministry of Health. And Nina Canuti, who's going to tell us how to leverage LinkedIn like a pro. But I actually want, Nina, why don't you start and tell people, since I don't have it written down here, what your title is. And we can quickly meet everyone. I want to say hi to my co-host too. Hi, hosts. Hi, co-host. Eric, Kritika, hi.
Hi.
You go.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eric, Bara, and Kritika for having me on the show. And so my name is Naina Kapuri. I'm originally from India. Now I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, where Bara lives as well. And I wear several hats. So I'm the founder of the Expat Woman, which is an organization for professional immigrant women who move to the US or other countries and are trying to navigate life both professionally and personally. I founded that in 2013 in San Francisco, and I have a network of over 10K women and allies in on my mailing list. And then I also am a LinkedIn coach, consultant, and speaker. And this year I was recognized as one of the top 15 LinkedIn experts in San Francisco in 2023. And I call myself the LinkedIn architect because my whole goal is to help people leverage LinkedIn to build their own tables. Don't wait to have a seat, to be invited to have a seat at the table, but use LinkedIn to build your own table by using, things like LinkedIn events and audios and all that. So I work with both individuals and companies to help them leverage LinkedIn to stand out.
Awesome. It's so nice to have you. It's so great to meet you. And we'll keep our intros pretty brief so we could totally dive into the topics, because we have major experts here on LinkedIn, with Brenda having the book out. And Antonio, you want to tell briefly what you did, and then Brenda, you could tell us briefly a little bit about you, but we'll keep it short so we can dive into the topic.
So yeah, I live in Luxembourg, so a very small country in the center of Europe. I've actually encountered LinkedIn when I came out of the MBA and used it a little bit to support my consulting activity for PwC. So I used to leverage LinkedIn a little bit to sell contracts, let's say. And then I used it also for myself and a little bit for my identity. And now that COVID has hit us, and then I moved to the government, I have become a little bit more discreet, let's say, because we have some communication guidelines, as you can imagine, in the government. So that's also interesting as a transition.
That is interesting, to move from being able to be completely out there and using LinkedIn, which is so much a vehicle to be present, and then all of a sudden have to shut it down, right?
Have to a little bit, let's say, more discreet, not completely shut it down.
Okay.
But I have more guidelines, let's say. I was completely free before. Now I am a little bit more guided.
Yeah, we could probably do an episode just on that, right? Transitioning in that way. And Brenda, do you want to share, please, a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I come from a background of English, writing and editing. I was an English major at Yale, and then I went on to law school, but I entered into public interest law, which meant that I kind of needed to find other ways to support myself living in New York. And I started a business helping people with their college admissions essays. And I also started working for Kaplan as a law school admissions consultant, helping people with their essays. And that's really what led me into the resume writing world, and by association, the LinkedIn world. So, some of my clients would come back and say, I need my resume done. And when I was ready to transition and start a writing and editing business, it was all resumes and LinkedIn profiles, as well as admissions essays. And of course, as I've become an executive resume writer, I've gotten a lot of exposure to the corporate world. And so I also do MBA admissions essay work or coaching as well.
Makes sense. Totally. It's wonderful to have all of you here with us. Eric, you want to start us off?
Yeah, so to get us started today, shall we just acknowledge that LinkedIn just celebrated its 20-year anniversary? So this episode is actually quite timely. We actually planned it before I even knew that. And since its inception, the platform has grown enormously in subscribers, but also in many services and tools that come along with it. After 20 years, there are over 930 million users in over 200 countries all over the world, with the headquarters in Mountain View, California, and over 21,000 employees worldwide, totaling in nearly 14 billion US annually, and publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange under Microsoft, its parent company, since 2016. So major progress. I mean, talk about a success story. However, this just came in. I saw this morning on the news that LinkedIn's version of China, that LinkedIn app in China, just got shut down by the Chinese government, and they laid off over 700 employees. So there's a lot of movement going on right now. Be interesting to see what happens and how they intend to fill that gap in terms of their revenue. But let's get into the topic. Let's give a little bit of background. Dara, why don't you take it away?
Barry, you're on mute.
Mute.
Technology. I was just saying I heard some background noise, but yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's been 20 years because we all probably have different relationships, especially you, Antonio, with the platform. But I wanted to hear a little bit about when did you personally get active on LinkedIn and why? And anyone can really start. And what drew you to it? I remember seeing it, thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm going to use this and Facebook. Really? That's what I'm going to do? So I'm curious how you engaged with it initially, and what drew you to it. And any of our guests can start first.
I'd love to start. I started using LinkedIn when I started my writing and editing business. It was just really becoming a thing. It was around 2008, beginning of 2009. And I just had this intuition, maybe, that if I were going to have a business, I had to be on LinkedIn. So I got on LinkedIn. And that was a time. So all of you have probably heard of LinkedIn groups. Maybe you're not really sure why you're in them or what's going on with them. Maybe you're not getting much value out of them. But in 2008, 2009, LinkedIn groups were a big thing. They were small. And if you connected with someone in a group, it meant something. So we supported each other in those groups. And I met someone who was a marketing expert. And I came from an English degree, a law degree. I knew nothing about marketing. And he said, here's what you should do. Give free LinkedIn profile reviews to people like in the groups. So I was like, okay, I mean, I guess I'll trust this guy. So I started doing free profile reviews. And then I started seeing a lot of errors being made over and over and over again. And I got tired of telling everyone the same things over and over. I started charging a little more for my reviews, and I started writing blog articles. And before I knew it, I had so many blog articles that I put them all together into a book. And, the rest is history. That book was first a free book, then it became How to Write a Killer LinkedIn Profile, which is now in its 16th edition, as Bara shared. So that's my LinkedIn story. And I really, really built my business through LinkedIn. I don't think I would have my business without LinkedIn, just hands down. And I get contacted all the time by people who find me on LinkedIn and are interested in talking to me or working with me. So that's my LinkedIn story.
That makes a lot of sense. Nina or Antonio, how about you? Either of you.
I would. LinkedIn's 20th anniversary last year was 21 years since I moved to the US. So I came to the US with zero professional network. And I was working for a nonprofit in 2007, which helped immigrant professionals get jobs in San Francisco in the US. And one of my students was using LinkedIn, and that was the first time I heard about it. It was like, oh, LinkedIn's great, especially for immigrants, because we can connect with all these people. And he had 500 connections, and we were like, wow, he's got 500 connections. So we all signed up on LinkedIn, and then after that I made a documentary film. I used LinkedIn to promote my film, to find people. When I started my expat woman business, I used LinkedIn to, I would host events every week in San Francisco. Again, I didn't have much of a professional network, but I found sponsors, I found speakers, I found event venues, I promoted the event. So LinkedIn really helped me build this network of people that helped me through my different career pivots and journeys. And then when the pandemic hit, and I started using LinkedIn more strategically, people started reaching out to me and asking me, how do we use LinkedIn? And then I never planned to be a LinkedIn coach and consultant. So the pandemic kind of led me to become one. And I just love the platform. And especially for women professionals who suffer from imposter syndrome and want to really stand out, or companies too that feel that they're invisible. I just think the platform offers us so many opportunities. And this year, LinkedIn has released over 73 or 80 features while we speak, 80 new features to help us really stand out on the platform. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Can't wait to hear about those features.
We'll have to have several LinkedIn lives,
Yeah.
But I can share a few for sure.
As for me, it's actually very different. I didn't start for business. I started for pure pleasure, I have to say, in the sense that I always loved to write and interact with people. So I used to take my phone or my laptop to a local Starbucks. We don't really have Starbucks in Luxembourg, but we have a sort of Starbucks, let's say. Because I had Wi-Fi problems at home. So I took my little phone, went to the bar, and started actually publishing posts or articles. As simple as that, because I love to study and I love to write. Then what happened was very interesting. I started having a certain regularity, and I saw people responded to posts and articles. And when I went to PwC, at the beginning, so I had a little bit of doubts if I had to continue or not, because as you can imagine, a company like PwC has a strong communication department, and they also have guidelines and etc. But what happened is that they actually welcomed my publishing, and then at one point I made a bet with our communication department. My three friends of the communication department, I said that I could get more followers than them in 10 months than all three together, and it's actually worked. It was, for me, I was never really an expert. I mean, compared to you guys, I have to say I'm probably I know 1% of what you know, but it was really about consistency and having that kind of editorial planning. I always published on the same days at the same hours. I knew what I was publishing. There was a long-term plan of what I was publishing. And since it was for pleasure, it was really about them. It wasn't really about me. I wasn't trying to sell anything, not really. I mean, they could reach out to me, but being PwC, you already have a certain image. You don't really need to, maybe yes, but not really. So probably this was a pleasure for a lot of people. And as I said, unfortunately, then COVID hit. And what happened is that I took a very active role, in the sense that I was the responsible of all the health personnel during the COVID crisis in Luxembourg. So my position was very delicate. And when I stopped publishing, it was a great pleasure to see that all the people that were reading my articles and posts continued to reach out to me and say they were so sorry to not read anymore. So it was really I have to say, also, I say it also for the people out there, it can also be a simple, pleasant experience. If you love writing, if you love interacting with people, it can make you grow, even if it's not for business. It can make you grow personally.
I love that. I mean, I think that we often talk in MBA Waves a lot about how the whole journey is just a representation of, like, the application journey is a representation of life. And so, having outlets like LinkedIn and Facebook and, even Twitter, although that's changing more quickly than LinkedIn, it seems, right? That dumpster fire is happening. So, it does allow you to grow as a person. And I think that, what's better than that? So since everyone here is a pretty avid LinkedIn user, what are some of your favorite features of the platform and why? And how do you make LinkedIn work for you as an individual and also for your company, for the work that you do?
I'll go. So I find, so first of all, LinkedIn has LinkedIn audio events, which was released last year, and I find of I do a lot of events. I find LinkedIn audio events are really powerful. First is you don't have to worry about your hair, makeup, all that stuff. Secondly, everyone gets notified when you host a LinkedIn audio event and you go live, just like LinkedIn lives. But I've noticed I do both LinkedIn live events and audio events. My audio events get a huge turnout because people know that they can attend the event and they can be going for a walk, driving, and the LinkedIn audio events also has auto caption, so you can even listen to it with the sound off. So and it I host these events every month, and I invite, like I invite speakers, mostly women, in my LinkedIn Thought Leadership Academy, which is a membership for LinkedIn for women who want to leverage LinkedIn. So I find that feature very powerful. You just have to speak. It's very easy to use. So that's one feature I love. And then LinkedIn, I think, Eric, you asked me what were some of the new features that LinkedIn's use. Since we have a lot of people who are, looking for jobs, LinkedIn released one of the features they released this year, or this month actually, was if you go to a company page and you go to the About section, if they have LinkedIn Recruiter, if you scroll down on the About section of their page, you will see a little button saying I'm interested. So you click that in, I'm interested in working for that company. You click that button, your LinkedIn profile will be automatically shared with the recruiters at that company. So it's all private, and and then they'll contact you, so you don't even have to apply for a job at the company. You can just click that I'm interested button. They're rolling it out. You might not have it, but I think for job seekers that's a really useful feature. Another one is a career break on your profile, where you can, if you've taken a sabbatical, maybe you finish, you're doing your MBA but you had a break before your MBA, you can add that. I mean, there are many more features, but I just wanted to share one of my favorite features and two features that I think would be relevant for MBA, as people who are graduating or looking for jobs.
Interesting. By the way, those features, is that with the free version or is that with the premium LinkedIn or?
Oh, this is all with free. For the LinkedIn audio, you need to have creator mode, but the other two, I'm interested, and the career break, are free. Not premium at all. Most features on LinkedIn are free. Premium gives us just a few additional features. So, I would encourage people not to use premium unless you're like me, and I'm sure maybe people are really leveraging LinkedIn to find clients, or, stuff like that. I just want to add one more thing. Antonio Marco, my son's name is Marco Antonio. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. So I just wanted to say that before I forgot.
So I'm going to also probably talk about, the dichotomy of managing a business page versus your personal page. When you're looking at your business, you obviously are there in order to promote your achievements, as well as like what you stand for, all the things that you offer, and anything that you have. So that is how you set it up. But today we are speaking as how to use LinkedIn as a pro, as an individual. And I think that here, especially as an MBA aspirant, what you can put out there would be things that people may not know from you or know about you by looking at your resume. or may not know about you by looking at your essays. So what you cannot add to the rest of your application is what you would try to squeeze in to your LinkedIn profile by having those strategic posts.
Yeah, I always tell my clients LinkedIn is like a complement to your CV. It allows you to elaborate more, as you say. A lot of schools will only, Harvard Business School, for example, they only allow a one-page CV, one-page resume. And so it's quite limiting. You have to be very strategic about what you include, structure it well. But LinkedIn gives you a huge opportunity to add so much more color and interest to your profile than just the CV itself. And they will for sure check your LinkedIn profile, which for your CV, you should absolutely have the URL up on top in your header, I think.
Well, I did an experiment this week because I'm running a fundraiser to raise money for a rescue group out here that rescues dogs. And I don't usually put personal stuff on LinkedIn. So I'm curious to see, because I'm looking for donations of like goods and services. I'm looking to see like if anyone is going to respond on LinkedIn, right? Because it's not usually the space where you have something like that if it's not your work, right? Like my work isn't to do this fundraiser. So I'm curious to see if it leverages any donations for the cause. So that should be interesting. I'm not a pro. I'm not a LinkedIn pro, by the way. Brenda, you're on mute.
There has been a little bit of a sea change on LinkedIn where it is becoming a little more personal. I mean, as people realize that if you're going to post an article on LinkedIn, like if you're going to write something, you want to have a little bit of a personal touch, and it's becoming more and more not just acceptable, but encouraged and desired and effective on LinkedIn to bring that personal side in, as long as it's appropriate. There's certain personal things that are appropriate for LinkedIn and some that are not, but I think it's great that you're using LinkedIn that way. I could also share one of my favorite features of LinkedIn. Okay, so one of them is the little where you can do a little video of yourself in place of your headshot. I think that's really cool. It's just like 20 seconds. You can only do it on your phone if you're looking for the feature. And it's just a way to show a little more of your energy and personality on LinkedIn. I really think it's fun to watch people, and I have one for myself. And also in terms of the job search features, I love that you can see salary information. You can see how you compare to other candidates, how many candidates are applying, how well your skills match up to the skills that job is looking for. So there's so many features in the job search area that are just incredible. You can set job search parameters so you get information automatically into your inbox. So love all that. And one of my favorite things is one of the simplest and oldest that's always been one of the most important features of LinkedIn. And that is the ability to put keywords in the places that you need them. It's just so important. And a lot of people don't even realize that, let's say especially for your headline, it doesn't have to be just, if let's say you're in your business school program, it doesn't have to be like MBA candidate and the name of the school. You can actually put keywords that say more about who you are. And LinkedIn has expanded the number of characters that you can use in that headline. It used to be, I think, 120, and now it's 220. So you have a lot of space there. And that's going to help you so much once recruiters are starting to look for you, that you can put an industry, a skill, a preferred title, like aspiring something, so that recruiters are going to find you. Same thing with your job titles. So it doesn't have to just be the title that the company gave you. If it's really long, you might not have space to put additional keywords. But if it's a short job title, you can put the little pipe symbol, which is the up and down, that's the shift backslash on your keyboard. And then you can put in more keywords after the actual job title. And all of that is going to help you to be found.
Yeah, to respond to your points, Brenda, I think LinkedIn's been really attentive to the needs and wants of its users. I don't know if they've formally asked a certain percentage of their users, or maybe certain high followed profiles are asked, or whatnot, but I think it comes down to they've become more human. Like, it's obviously a professional space and there's a limit to what you should and shouldn't talk about, but it's become more human, like adding that funny button instead of just like support, insightful. There's a funny button that was added because people do post a bit of humor sometimes, and I think it's important, right, to keep things moving along, but also attentive to the fact that people wanted to have more keywords and more characters available in that tagline. And the video picture also, the video, let's call it video headshot, you said. A lot of people aren't comfortable with a picture of themselves. So maybe instead of a still, some people are more comfortable with the video where you're more fluid and more natural. So I think it's cool that LinkedIn's been really attentive.
I think it's also when you do personal posts, I think it's also not just humanizing your profile, but I think it builds that no like and trust factor, because people want to buy from people, people want to hire people, right? So I think that's why, and I think that's why also LinkedIn's moved away from this very professional, platform. I like to call it like dudes in suits kind of platform, to more like relax. And I mean, I see all kinds of personal content. I see there's one LinkedIn expert who even spoke about how he attempted suicide, and how he changed his life around. So he gave something very personal, but he didn't just share the sob story. He said how he got his life back and what he did. So I see people, again, it's up to each person what you want to really reveal on the platform, but I've seen some very vulnerable stories being shared. So I think that's important as students to stand out. And as Brenda said, also your title, right? Your headline, those first 50 characters are what people see when you connect with someone. When recruiters are looking at your profile, that's what they're going to see, those first 50 characters. So you want to really stand out. Instead of saying software engineer or MBA, whatever, you want to use something that will get like a hook that'll get people excited about wanting to look at your profile.
They also only see the first line or two of your about section.
Right. That's
you also want to grab them with something that has impact in those first couple lines in the about section as well.
In the last episode of MBA Waves, we talked about personal branding, and very much of it had to do with being authentic, but also having that limit, right? Like, you don't share everything. It's very much a curated presentation of who you are. And LinkedIn is a big part of personal branding, obviously. Did you guys want to maybe go through the different sections and talk about some of the key things you want to include? Like, obviously, if I think about it, there's the top part, which is like you have that banner picture, you have the photo of you, you have the keywords or tagline. Then it gets into the about, usually experiences, education, skills, groups. There's lots of things in there. So, whoever wants to start off with just saying some things, thinking about from top to bottom, or whatever way you want to do it, to talk about what's important to include or not.
I actually forgot to add one feature that is my favorite. It's called the LinkedIn audio recording. It's right at the top below your name. You can use it on your phone. Now, my name is Naina, but most people call me Nina. And I think for candidates, I was told that sometimes recruiters won't call a candidate because they can't pronounce their name and they don't want to mispronounce it. And I believe you have 30 seconds. So you can say, hi, I'm Naina Kaputi and I'm an MBA candidate looking for blah, blah, blah. So you can not just use your first and last name, but you can also add something else to it, like a little pitch. So that's a feature I really encourage. And the other new feature, and I'll give the others a chance to talk. The other new feature, you asked me about the features, Eric. A new feature that LinkedIn's added is in your about section, you can now include skills. So you when you go to your about section and you edit it, at the bottom it'll say add your top 5 skills. Now in the past, people would just copy and they paste their skills in the about section. Now you can add your top five skills. LinkedIn will give you suggestions for those skills, but you can overwrite them and choose your own one. So when you see, if anyone goes to my profile, you'll see my about section, you'll see some of my content, and then you see my 5 skills. So it really pops. So I encourage people to use that. And finally, in the about section, don't just copy and paste your resume, the thing. Your about section should really be about who you are, who do you serve, how do you help them, what pain points. So if you're an MBA, you've graduated, you want to say who, like be the most specific and strategic. You think of always keep your target audience in mind when writing your LinkedIn profile. It's not about you. People are not interested in you. They're interested in what can you do for them. So keep that in mind.
I imagine also on an SEO level, that's designed to help that, so you're more searchable. It's
yeah, using the keywords, like I think Brenda mentioned, right, in your headline, in your about section, even recommendations from people, get them to tell them what keywords you want them to use, but don't make it so keyword heavy that it's not telling a story.
Right.
You look at some profiles, it looks like Chat GPT wrote them. It's like, don't use Chat GPT to write. If you use them, to let it be the foundation, but humanize it, and it has to be in the first person, not third person. It's like going to a networking event and saying, hi, Naina Kapuri does that. You say, you talk like you're talking to the person. So that's another mistake people make. And make it scannable, like little sentences instead of a big chunk in your about section. Let the profile be scannable with white spaces.
Those are super practical tips. Yeah.
What else about the about section? Like, I've seen some about sections that are very sparse. I've seen others that are like really long. Obviously, there's a happy medium, the middle road, right? So
I like using as many characters as you can. Again, the about section used to also be a lot shorter, and now it's 2,600 characters. So I support sharing a lot about where you're coming from, what your history is, but the about section is unique to each person. Each person has their own story and their own purpose. Who do they want to reach out to, and what do they really need to share that's going to make a difference? So I don't think there's any one way to write an about section. One cool thing that you can do, now if you, let's say you write your about section in Word and you italicize some things and you bold some things and that sort of formatting, that is not going to carry over into the about section on LinkedIn. The only way to get things to be bolded, italicized, if you see in other people's LinkedIn profiles, oh, how did they get that to happen? That looks cool. Maybe there's a cool arrow or some emoji even that they have in their profile. The way to do that is to use, well, you can insert emojis, and you can also convert text into HTML so that it works on LinkedIn. And there are websites, one is called Yay Text, that will help you do that. You put your regular text into the site, you push the button for the one that you want it to change it, and then all of a sudden you have bolded text or you have italicized text. The one thing you need to watch out for, though, is that once you convert that text, it is no longer a keyword, because it's basically an image once you do that. So be careful about, if you want to make things look cool in your LinkedIn profile, don't do it at the expense of your SEO. That's one, I think, important tip that not a lot of people are aware of.
Oh, you're on mute, Eric.
YouTube.
I just said thanks. That's really good to know. It's really helpful. Anything to add to this point about the about section? Any thoughts about that, Antonio or Naina?
Actually, I wanted to add something else because we talked about the features, but I think that one of the most important features, and it's not only about LinkedIn, is the fact that you have to bring the relations you're creating there outside. We didn't talk about this, but as an MBA candidate or when you finish your MBA, you're not there to show off. I mean, unless you want to. I mean, everybody's free to do whatever they want. If it's just to show off, go ahead and pat yourself on the back. But what I think is really important is that we talked about groups, for example, and I used to use a lot of groups because they're on a theme. So if you know what you want to do with your professional life, as much as we can know, because we're always growing. But let's say that you know that you want to be a consultant in a specific area or whatever. Engage as much as possible in those groups, engage as much as possible in the chats, and then bring it outside. Organize calls, speak with people, because it does work. And it did it. And I met a lot of, even in Luxembourg, which is very small, I mean, I had an enormous amount of people that were from elsewhere. that were following my posts and etc. But at one point, in those groups, you start meeting people. For me, it was near people, so Belgium, Germany, France, and etc. And after a few calls, then you meet them, and then it becomes a real connections, then it becomes real business. So I think one of the most important features of social media in general is that you have to mix it with the analog life. It's not only about digital.
I love what you said, Antonio Marco, about taking it off LinkedIn, because LinkedIn at any time can crash, right? It can collapse, and then you lose all those thousands of followers you have. So I love that, and I think there is magic in LinkedIn group. It's really the goal of LinkedIn is really connecting with people and then taking them the relationship off the platform. I mean, that's how it worked for me. You were asking about the about section, Eric. One other tip I would share is have a call to action at the bottom of your about section. Let people know, because even though you have contact info in the introductory card of LinkedIn, at the top, sometimes when recruiters or whoever's reading your about section, if you say call me, you can put a number. If you have Calendly, you can add a link to like a calendar invite or a website or something, but have a call to action at the bottom of your of your about sections to lead people to that.
I had a call to action I absolutely agree, because I had a call to action in every post, in every article. It was really about, actually, I think it really started from a question, and then it was a call to action also in the end. So it was, ask yourself this, and then at the end is, let's talk about this. And what do you think about it? And then reach out, and really that starts the connection. If you don't do that, it's a monologue.
I like that point about, it being a dialogue and not a monologue. Because everyone thinks that even if it's an MBA aspirant, they think like, okay, I have to write everything I got, including the prize from my third grade or whatever, right? But the aim here, I think, is, aim of of LinkedIn is networking and actually learning how to network. I think that was the goal of the platform, and the best use of it, especially for MBA aspirants as well as MBA graduates, would be exactly what you cited. Yeah.
Yeah,
If you look at, just the idea of link, right? Like the idea of LinkedIn, if you think about links, it's like,
right.
Someone was just telling me about like quantum physics and Newtonian physics, right? Like the individual versus the collective. There's an idea that we're part of the collective at the same time that we can also be autonomous. And LinkedIn, it's like you're only a link chain if you've got the individual parts that bring you together, right? So
right, you want to talk with people, not talk to people. So even when I know it's not about section, but when you do a post and someone comments on your post, this is one of my biggest pet peeves on LinkedIn, when people post or they tag you and then you comment and then they don't respond to your comment, because I think it's all about building engagement, and the LinkedIn algorithm really likes when you create a post, someone comments and you respond to the comment, they show your post to more people. So again, it's about engaging and creating conversations. As Antonio Marco said, it's also about asking a question, right? You ask a question in the post, so you're not just giving them advice, these are my LinkedIn tips. You ask them, do you have any suggestions, or do you have a comment about this? So you want to keep the people engaged. It's very important. And as Bara said, it's about link really LinkedIn. I think maybe they thought about that name. I don't think it was just right. They're not like Apple and all, which are kind of like not so, I would say, practical. Like LinkedIn does talk about that. So I think that's so important, and that's how you stand out, because only 1 to 3% of people on LinkedIn are actually actively engaging. So out of 930 million people, only 1 to 3% are really leveraging the platform. So by you really engaging in conversations, commenting on posts, responding to your comments, creating content, having a good profile, you will stand out from the others, especially as an MBA aspirant.
Guys, what are your thoughts about pictures? Like, there's that, you call it a cover picture or a banner picture up top. How important is that? And what suggestions do you have for people who don't know what to put there?
I think it's super important. If you don't have one at this point, it's like you really don't care. And you really haven't done your due diligence in creating your professional profile in the most important platform on the earth. So it's I would say it'd be a red flag to any recruiter, whether it's to a school or a job, for someone just not to put anything back there. In terms of what to put there, it really could be anything that gives you a professional look. It could be a cityscape, it could be any kind of corporate image that you like. I don't know that there's any professional type image or sort of just a abstract kind of image that would necessarily be wrong. But for a lot of people, there's something meaningful. And there are some really cool corporate backgrounds that can make you look really good. You can even, if you have any skills, you can kind of put your name at the top right corner and make it look really cool. You can also match. There are ways, if you have a good headshot, which is also very important to have a good headshot and not like something you snapped with your iPhone. But you can change even the background behind your headshot and have it complement what you have in that banner background image. But if you have an industry that's important to you, use an image that's associated with that industry. If you can do a collage of the companies you've worked with, there's so many different options. And I have a bunch of them in my book. I have, even on my website, I have some samples. I have sample LinkedIn profiles. And you can look at the banner images that some of those people have chosen. But I think it's something to think carefully about and be creative with, absolutely. And it can make a really good impression.
Again, you're curating your brand, right? You've said is very similar to what I say to people all the time on this topic. Like, I think you should choose something that represents you. Good ideas are something that represents where you live, like you said, a cityscape, or perhaps where you want to be. Like if you say you're from, I don't know, India, and you really want to study in France, like maybe a Parisian skyline is like something to show. Something that also could work is that represents the industry you work in. Whether it's like FMCG or it's in travel or whatever, something that represents the industry or the one you want to work in. So kind of showing something into the future, like your target, or just a passion of yours. Like if you're really into pottery, or I don't know, something that, again, a personal side of you, something that humanizes you beyond just,
I would add, these are both great tips, Brenda and Eric. I would add, what do you want two things you keep in mind when you're doing LinkedIn, whether it's your banner, your about, what do you want to be known for, and who's your audience? So those are very important. When you know what you want to be known for, then your banner, your about section, everything will follow suit. So cause sometimes I see people use like a cityscape, and then like I think it makes sense if you're a realtor. But I think if this is your digital billboard, this is free. LinkedIn's giving you, and Bill Gates have the same banner, whatever width, right? He's not getting, so you want to really utilize it and be creative. And Canva is a fabulous tool. It's free. You can create it even has, if you go to Canva, for those who don't know, just go to canva.com. You can look up LinkedIn banners and it'll give you samples. Don't use the LinkedIn gives you suggested banners. Don't use that. And as Brenda said, don't leave it blank. It really is a red flag. It just shows that, this is how you stand out. So you want to be, so I said be strategic if you can and make your banner about what you want to be known for. And one additional tip, make sure you check when you add your banner, make sure you also check it on your mobile phone, because sometimes when you have text on it, on your mobile phone, it gets squished and half the text of the image gets blocked because, so usually you want to put your text to the far right-hand side so it doesn't get squished on the mobile. Yeah, and I definitely use brand colors. And with your profile photo, make sure it's like your shoulders and above, you're looking at the camera and you don't have any pets. So you don't have somebody else in the photo with you. And if you can add brand colors like a neutral background, or wear clothes that are colors of your brand, because you did personal branding last week, it's even more strategic. So those are my
Eric, just to add one thing, I agree with Brenda. I think there's something worse than not having an image is when they're actually not adapted. I'm sorry if it's a very basic advice, but when the size of the image is terrible and it's completely stretched, or etc., as Nina also was saying, I think that's even worse than not having an image. Actually,
I agree. Like you do not mess with the proportions. Just to fit it in. If it's not fitting, you need a new picture.
If you don't have a banner, you would be a bot.
Yeah, it's true.
There's a lot of bots out there that are actually not bots that just don't.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving away from the top, I mean, like the next sections I think of are after the about are like education and experience, which seem to me quite straightforward to me. So I don't, considering the time we have left, I don't necessarily want to spend time on that unless you have a really critical point to share, anyone in the room, about that. Looks like Brenda might have. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So we talked about job titles and putting keywords in your job titles. That is really important in your experience section. The other important thing is you want, if your company has a company page on LinkedIn, then you will be able to get the little icon, like the logo for the company, to show up. So make sure you put the company name in the way that the company page, so that the company page will match to it and pull in that logo. Otherwise, you're going to have basically the equivalent of a blank background image. It's just going to be a square.
That gray icon.
Yeah, and if your company doesn't have a company page on LinkedIn, then you're not going to be able to get that logo to show up.
You can ask them to make one.
You could ask your company to make a company page. Yeah.
And if they don't want to do it, you can offer to do it. See if that gets you.
Yeah, and add it to the resume.
Also,
Right, exactly.
If you
Leadership.
can, don't just we talked about not copying and pasting your summary from the top of your resume into your about section. And I would say the same thing with the experience. It's not like it's going to be the worst thing in the world for you just to copy your resume bullets into your LinkedIn profile. But if you can say it a little bit differently in LinkedIn, maybe introduce the bullets a little bit more conversationally, maybe change the bullets. Oh, and if you have confidential information on your resume, do not put it into your LinkedIn profile. Be vague, generalize, take out any information that you're not supposed to be sharing according to your company. So that's important.
Yep. Good thing to remember. All right. So moving on to the skills section, I think that's often overlooked. And, there's the fact that you can add up to 50 skills. Maybe if you want to, we're mainly targeting people here. We're maybe talking to people, here on MBA Waves who are applying for an MBA or a master's program. So they're in their 20s or 30s. How many skills is appropriate? What's the best way to get people to endorse you for them? What are you guys' thoughts?
I'd say don't use basic skills like people use Microsoft Word and Excel and communication. I think don't use things that are very general. I mean, at this point, when it first came out, it was cool. So don't use those. Again, what do you want to be known for? Choose those. Be very strategic. You don't need to use all 50 skills. You could have just 10 skills. But if they represent what you want to be known for, that's important. You can endorse other people's skills. They're more likely to endorse us, but only endorse people's skills if you know what they've done. Don't just blindly endorse people, or you can ask people to endorse your skills. For instance, we've been on this live. Maybe some of us would reach out to, you guys to endorse our skills. So use that. And since we're talking about skills, I'd say the same with recommendations. People are not really leveraging recommendations. And you can have testimonies on your resume. But on LinkedIn, recommendations are so powerful because people can click on the names of the people who gave the recommendations and realize these are real people. Like on websites, you don't know if it's fake or not. Even video testimonials on websites, people are paying people on Fiverr and Upwork to do these, like actors, to do their testimonials for them. So LinkedIn, so I would say for those who are looking for jobs, looking to get to MBAs, reaching out to people now. Don't wait till you need a job to do a recommendation. Make it easier by telling them, giving them some key points that you want in the recommendation, so it makes it easier for them. You can even write the recommendation and say, I want to make it easier, feel free to tweak or edit it. So those are my two. And also give recommendations. Don't keep asking. Make it a habit to also give recommendations, right? Again, it's about a two-way street and giving as much as you're taking.
Yeah, I suggest they offer to give people they've worked with recommendations, either worked for or they worked under them, colleagues, whatever, offer to give recommendations, and they're more likely to give one in return. And it's also important to make sure you approve a recommendation that's been given to you. There's that final step. If you've gone through the trouble and someone else has gone through the trouble of writing that for you, you have to remember to approve it so it'll appear in your profile. Otherwise, you won't benefit from that. And
you can ask them to edit it too. Sorry, go ahead. ask them to, sorry, I quickly finish it. You can ask them to edit it. Supposing they give you a recommendation and there's some typos or there's something that's thing you can, before you prove it, you can say, can you edit this? Or can you add this sentence? And sorry, Brenda, go ahead.
No, that's fine. That was a great point. So two things came up for me. One is also, if you have recommendations that are really old, maybe you got them 5 years ago, 10 years ago. If the person is still in your life, you can get them to make a teeny little change and it updates to present. That's a cool little trick. If you're like, I don't know who else I can ask, maybe ask one of the older ones and it will refresh. Also, it's also important to give recommendations. And recruiters do pay attention to whether you are a person who pays it forward and supports your colleagues or even your reports or your superiors or any of that. It looks really good for you to be recommending people as well as receiving recommendations. So not all like take, do some give.
I think that's a really important point.
So I have this question to ask. I'm an MBA aspirant, as many of our viewers are. So what should they be doing with the posts that they can leverage? Like a group of posts that they can leverage so that they can present, their best stories and of course other things that they cannot tell in the application.
There's so many different kinds of posts, and I know a lot of people struggle with writing posts. So I'd say start off maybe by commenting on other people's posts. So you can do a search and decide what do I want, who are the people I want to follow, who are the people I want to work for, what are the topics I'm interested in. Start by commenting on other people's posts. That makes it easier. And don't just write great post or good job or I love what you say. You could ask a question, you could take a sentence from the post and say why it resonates with you. Start with that. One of the simplest posts you can create is a poll. So you can do a LinkedIn poll, and LinkedIn's pushing the audio events polls and doing native videos where you just record. So you could do a poll. Maybe you could decide, I don't know, on a topic. Like when I do a poll, say I'm doing a poll about LinkedIn, I'll say which is the biggest hurdle you have with using LinkedIn profile, creating content, building your network, and then people will, choose one of those. And people find polls very easy. Because I know a lot of people have that fear of putting themselves out there on LinkedIn. So you want to start small and easy. And then, of course, don't post and ghost. Make sure you comment. Or, if someone's watching this event, they could take a screenshot and they could share one key takeaway from today's or any of your MBA Wave workshops or lives, and then make a post around that. So you can do it from an event and tag some of us. So these are some ideas I'd share.
Awesome.
I just have two very general advice on posting, because I love to post, actually. I love to write. I didn't do videos at all, actually. I was always posting. What I can advise is, yes, I agree. Put yourself out there don't think about you have to become Hemingway from one day to the other. Just, write little things and then you grow over time, and that's okay. But then really think about to not feel the awkwardness, because it's like you're in a conversation, okay? You're at a party and you're having a drink and you're talking with people. You can feel awkward or you can be part of the conversation. When you feel better with yourself talking with the others is when you have a logic. Okay? What I mean by that is why you have to ask yourself really, why am I posting something? And in the long term, not today, not because I went to a party or I went to an event or whatever, and I want to say, wow, I was at the event, it was cool. What is your long-term writing goal? That is really what you have to think about before you start posting, because then you don't feel awkward at all, because you have something to give, you feel legitimate, and then you start posting, and then you will become more and more comfortable. The only thing I also wanted to ask the panelists here, because I'm very curious, is that back in the days when I was writing every day, it was a struggle. What I mean is, it was a lot of work. You have to imagine, studying a lot, and every day I was writing and then rewriting and then editing and rewriting and rewriting. Now we have all these things like ChatGPT and Dectopus and et cetera, And I am a bit envious. I have to say, I'm a bit jealous. I'm not. I'm not saying please don't. I agree. Don't go on ChatGPT and make them write the post because it's horrible. But it's true that they give a big help. Do you agree with this or not? At least to structure your ideas, the long-term logic that I was talking about.
Yeah, I agree. I've been, I sometimes, I don't copy and paste it, but you want an idea. So you'll just say chat GPT, write a, can you, give me some ideas around this post, and so don't copy and paste it, but it does, the foundation does help. I use it also to comment on a post. I see someone's post and it's so good, but I'm not sure what to say. So I'll copy the post, put it in the chat GPT and say, give me some comment suggestions. But again, I humanize it. I use my language, but sometimes you just need that little bit of that inspiration. So again, people have to be very careful how they use chat GPT, because if you come across as a robot, and people, I can tell which people are using posts or creating posts or comments that are and using chat GPT. It just sounds so robotic. And then especially if you're looking for a job or trying to attract recruiters, it's going to put people off. So you can use it. Yeah.
I think what also works, Naina, if you agree, is that, as I was saying, so you have to have an editorial planning in the sense that, I want to write about this theme and I want to be regular and consistent, right? So every Monday I'm going to talk about project management. Okay, sorry, I am taking a boring subject, but it's kind of my topic, one of my topics. You can ask ChatGPT just to tell you, give me 50 episodes or 50 chapters of how you would talk about project management. Then you personalize it, but at least it gives you, only thinking about that before ChatGPT was terrible. Took me hours and hours. Now I'm going to structure this over the weeks. Now you just can ask them, what is the best way and easiest way to explain something in 50 episodes?
I put something up about that fundraiser that I mentioned before on Nextdoor.com. And then they suggested they must have some sort of app. They rewrote it for me in a much more convivial way.
Wow.
And I thought that was super interesting. They must have AI or the chat function enabled. And like Nextdoor.com, it's kind of a scrappy, it's a great tool, but obviously someone's investing something in it because it is kind of the LinkedIn of neighborhoods.
Yeah. If people are just using ChatGPT to write their posts, I really want to underscore what, Antonio and Naina have been saying about, humanizing, about not just copy and pasting it. I feel like if we all get on the bandwagon of just using ChatGPT and posting it directly, we're going to have robots talking to robots and the humans are going to get disinterested and abandoned. Like ChatGPT could be the death of these kind of platforms, honestly, because we're just going to be like, who cares? Let the robots talk to each other and we're going to find something else to do. But Antonio, sorry, what you were talking about earlier about like you're not writing just for today, but for like the long game, right? For the long term. And that goes into branding. It sounds very much like that's what you've done. Like, what is the overall message you want the universe to know about you via LinkedIn? And I remember while you were completing your MBA, you used the LinkedIn article feature quite a bit. Like, how did you first? You started alluding to it at the beginning of the conversation, but tell us more. Like, how did you first started doing that, and like, what were your goals specifically, and what was the result?
I think my goals was a bit like an horror movie director. I wanted to exercise my fears. Honestly, what I mean by that is that being an MBA candidate, it can be stressful, and you have to prepare, and you have the GMAT, and etc. And I really wanted to talk about what are the most common fears of candidates and most common fears of people wanting to get into an MBA. How it helped me is that, first of all, very pragmatically, it helped me to learn to write in an easy way. And since I had to do the essays, for example, just to get into university, I think it helped me quite a bit. Because when I had the essays to do, I already had, posted 100 times and etc. Learning to write, you can just read a book, you can read the book of Stephen King on writing and etc. That's great, you can, but you have to write. So it helped me in that way.
I just want to add very quickly before we end, LinkedIn has just released an AI feature for people who have premium. So you go to your start a post and you add 1 to 30 words, and LinkedIn will create a draft of a post for you. I mean, this is scary, but LinkedIn's just released that feature like this week, I think. Yeah, so they're using AI, but you have to have premium for that, and they're beta testing it.
What is it called?
It's not called, it's a new feature. So if you have premium and you might not have it yet, they're rolling it out. You go to start a post and you write 1 to 30. I haven't tested it yet, but I've read about the feature. You add 1 to 30 words and then you click draft, and LinkedIn will start the post for you.
Oh my goodness. It's
Yes.
coming.
I mean, yeah, but again, it's, all these things, it's still important to find it's about you. LinkedIn's all about you. And, so you can use all this stuff. It's, again, just helpful tools to make your life easier. I mean, it's scary because it's instant gratification for the next generation, right? They're not going to think after a while. It's like, I don't know.
Good to know. Guys, we're about an hour in, and there's two really important points I just want to address before we wrap it up. And if any of you have to bail out, totally get it. So you can just say goodbye whenever you want. But the two areas are really about how this specifically relates to the MBA application journey, obviously for MBA Waves. And to wrap it up, like kind of just to talk a little bit about etiquette, like do's and don'ts and so on. So yeah, I'll just ask, like, so what are some convincing reasons, I'll ask all of you, why one should use LinkedIn throughout or even before the MBA application journey, and how can you leverage LinkedIn specifically for your MBA applications?
Well, it's important because the committee is going to be looking on LinkedIn and want to find your profile. So that's the number one important reason to be on LinkedIn and to do an outstanding job of creating your profile and optimizing it and looking really good on there, because it really could sway the admissions committee. So I think that's a really big thing. And also, you get to follow the schools that you're applying to and look on their pages. And if you start interacting with any of the content that they're posting, same thing if you're looking for a job. If you start interacting with content that the company is posting on their LinkedIn page, you are going to stand out, because not a lot of people do that. So you will set yourself apart if you can engage even before you start the application process. Then they'll know who you are right off the bat.
Absolutely. Plus, you'll be totally informed and up to date on what's going on that campus or on that company.
Yeah.
And next time you're at talking about what Antonio was saying, taking it offline, when you're at a real life event, like an alumni coffee chat or whatever, you can actually make reference to what you know is going on campus. Like, oh, they just started a new program. They opened a new building. There's a new scholarship. Like, you in the know.
Yeah.
It makes you look good.
And
you did your homework.
And use LinkedIn to network with people who have been to that school, who have taken the career trajectory that you want to take. I mean, what an incredible opportunity. 20 years ago, that was not even possible. Now you can just go on a website and find people that you want to talk to and start talking to them and learning from them, and maybe getting ideas of the best way to approach your application or your job search. So it's an incredible resource.
Oh yeah, for my clients, that's like required homework. And I'll just take a really quick moment to plug the AGI applicant fair, which is coming up on May 24th. A great way to meet up with like top 20 schools, mostly in the States, but a lot in Europe as well. And it's a free opportunity to meet all these people. And, you can use LinkedIn to follow up with all these admissions reps and people who work in the schools that you're even just considering, to just really reinforce the relationship of someone you've met at an applicant fair or any kind of MBA or master's event. But going back to using LinkedIn for leveraging it for your applications, Antonio, maybe you as an applicant or looking back, were you also a student ambassador at ESSEC?
I surely became a student alumni after, but I don't know, an alumni ambassador after, but I don't know. I actually don't think so, no.
Well, anyway, how maybe you leveraged LinkedIn when you were an applicant to the school, or any advice you would give to people who were applying for MBAs you did, what do you think they should do?
Well, so any people that want to recruit you in a general sense, being a university or being a job after, what they want to do is minimize their risk, okay, right? And I think one of the biggest professional skills you can have in whatever sector you are is being able to create a community around you. It's being able to dialogue with the others, collaborate with the others. if you are able to show this in a constructive way, in a careful way, always be careful of what you post. But if you're able to show this in a careful way, I think an admission council will be careful to see, oh, look, this guy actually has 10,000 followers. Why is that? And what is he posting about? And why do people respond to his posts? I think if I was a recruiter, I would be very interested by a person who is able to be, to bring 10,000 people along, honestly.
Yeah. It's some kind of business influencer, a public issue.
I would say just, LinkedIn is there free. It's free. So you want to start showcasing your expertise. You want to be seen as an expert in your field. We all have unique skills and experiences. So you want to, you can do through your profile, through your comments, through your posts. And the other place where you can do this through your direct messages, sending messages. There's so much magic in that. Like Brenda said, following companies and people, or in universities that you want to be part of, see who's working there, start commenting on their post, and then send them messages. And with direct messages on LinkedIn, you can do a voice message, you can do a video message. So not just text, but if you use your phone, you can send a video message, or you can send an audio message, and that again makes you stand out. It's all about being memorable, and it's so easy to do it on LinkedIn. And as Antonio said, having a strategy, have a strategy in place. Don't just be all over the place. Be very focused on what you want to be known for, what value are you adding, and who you adding it for. I think that's really important, and that's sometimes the clarity comes as you get more active on the platform. You may not have the clarity initially. Just focus on the value. Even if one person can benefit from what you have to share on LinkedIn, you've done your job. So don't focus on the vanity metrics. How many likes am I getting? How many comments? That's secondary.
Love it. Guys, anything else to add before we wrap it up today?
So I have a LinkedIn YouTube channel. I share a tip every Thursday on LinkedIn. I'll share the link in the comments, so people, easy tips or new features on LinkedIn. And I also have a newsletter, and I also post content about LinkedIn, and I do events, audio and live events as well, mostly focused around LinkedIn. I'm doing a LinkedIn audio event with 5 women who work in the C-suite on LinkedIn. I mean, they're CEOs, they're CFOs, they're CPOs. So might be something people would be interested in attending and learning how these women are leveraging LinkedIn, in senior leadership.
I love that. And we didn't talk much about just building your network. You want to have at least 500 connections, which is the top number that shows up on LinkedIn. If you have fewer than 500, it's also a little bit of a yellow flag, maybe, depending on where you're at in your career. And the more connections your first level connections have, the bigger your network gets. And that helps you with being found on LinkedIn. It helps you to find other people on LinkedIn. So do expand your network, and you can start by connecting with everyone who's been speaking on this call today. I definitely welcome your invitation. Always include a note when you connect with someone on LinkedIn. Tell them, say, for us, you'll say, oh, I saw you on MBA Waves. Would really love to connect with you. If there's something in particular that you liked or have a question, use some kind of personalized invitation. If you do it on your phone, that means that you have to click on the more button and do personalized invite. It's a little tricky on the phone, because if you just say connect,
I don't know why it's like that.
I don't know.
I've noticed that.
Yeah.
I've noticed that.
And then you can't undo it. Like, that's a trick. If you've connected with somebody without, and you're like, ooh, I meant to send a personalized note, and then you can't back out of it. And if you try to, then you're blocked from reaching out again for like 3 weeks or something.
Right. You can sometimes send a message depending on what features you have and what features the other person has. Sometimes you can
That's
follow
rare, though.
a message.
Yeah.
If you have premium, you can definitely follow it up with a message. That's one of the benefits of premium, because you can send an email to the person with the message. But yeah, it's tricky on the phone. So be careful. Do personalized invites, what you want to do. But take a screenshot so everyone who's on this call, and please connect with us.
Absolutely. Anything else?
This is the longest MBA Waves we've had.
And I feel that we just scratched the surface.
Yeah. We could do a follow up on this easily.
We should.
Yeah, but
Barra,
it's like a 300-page book about LinkedIn, so there's a lot to talk about.
Totally. You want to wrap us up, Barra?
I can. Well, this is more than all the time that we have. We've extended further, and I want to thank my co-hosts, Eric and Kritika. It's great to see you and join in on this important, really interesting topic that we're learning about and the MBA hopefuls are learning about. And if you want to get in touch with anyone, definitely take that screenshot and find us on LinkedIn. I want to thank Brenda and Antonio and Nina. It was great to have you on today. And please give us a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this episode and a like. We do have an MBA Waves site on LinkedIn as well as our individual profiles, so you can find any of us as well. And be sure to subscribe to MBA Waves to stay on top of all of the tips and trends and news of MBA and the business world. And finally, don't forget to check us out next week, the same time and place. For full access of upcoming and past episodes, head over to MbaWaves.com. And have a great week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, and thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.